Hello indie game fans, the enduring legacy of Hotline Miami has seeped into a whole bunch of games with the super stylish, super slick, one-hit kill and one-hit death instant restart gameplay loop. If you want to feel old, it has been 5 years since the last Hotline Miami game, where the original was born during the indie boom in the early 2010s, and was one of the titles to show me the potential that indie gaming had. So let's take a look at 13 action-packed games like Hotline Miami. Let's begin with Akane, a super slick pixel art arena brawler set in the rain-soaked neon streets of Mega Tokyo. Just did a video on Cyberpunk games and this barely missed out on it, but this really does capture the feel of Hotline Miami with the combination of melee and ranged weapon options. It's a one-hit, one-kill title and just feels awesome to play, with the twist here being that you can pull out anime-style special moves to eliminate all enemies.
Apocalypse. We all know how it goes. Seal's broken, Earth shaking, but the gang needs to keep up with the times. Pestilence used to spread diseases. Now as a movie star, he spreads mindless entertainment. War ditched the rusty sword and heavily invested in the military-industrial complex. The yo-yo effect got the best of famine, and now she feeds off and on her acolytes. Death did keep the beard, but swapped his white horse for mountains of deadly white powder. And me? I'm just an angel who will stop them dead. Just never thought that a demon would be helping me out.
A fantastic title that taps on the religious slant is God's Trigger, where you go after the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse in a bid to stop the end of the world. Interestingly, this allows you to play in co-op, where the angel and demon character have their own unique set of powers, which makes this worth a play. A hidden gem that I don't see enough people talking about is Garage Bad Trip from 2018. Rather than slaying criminals or gang members, you're instead faced with good old reliable zombies as your enemies, where a drug dealer goes on a rampage to save a girl. Awesome look, which nails that VHS era B-movie look, especially with the scan lines, and has a little bit of that campy splatterpunk vibe. And chances are that you probably have not played this, so go give this a look. The most striking thing about 12 is better than 6 has to be the art style, a hand-drawn title that seems to be made using a blue ballpoint pen. It's a spaghetti western title where you roam the Wild West as an escaped slave searching for freedom, with period-appropriate weaponry and even stealth elements. Awesome look, awesome action, and a no-brainer for this video. Since we're talking about Hotline Miami after all, do expect a whole bunch of Devolver published titles, since they do tend to go for a certain game feel, and My Friend Pedro fits the bill. Playing as off-brand Deadpool, guided by a talking banana, eliminate everyone who stands in your way, which seems to be tracksuit-wearing mafia types, medieval LARPers, and both contemporary and futuristic military personnel. The violent ballet of destruction is in line with the subject, where you twirl, backflip, and launch yourself through the air while firing your guns. There's an interesting time-slowing focus system as well, and has a certain speed and momentum which takes some getting used to, but an all-action title that should not be missed. Growing up in Singapore, I've watched my fair share of Hong Kong action movies, and the Hong Kong Massacre looks to pay tribute to the John Woos and Chow Yun-fats of the world. It's a cinematic action title with a hard-boiled revenge story at the heart of it all, where you play as a former police detective who goes on a rampage to avenge the death of his partner. The slow-mo ability adds to this, allowing you to feel as if you were in such a movie, with the same one-shot, one-kill gameplay that is just awesome. Another underrated title is Mr. Shifty, an action title with a wonderful comic book art style and the same fantastic action. The twist here is that as Mr. Shifty, you do have the ability to blink and teleport short distances, using this to get the jump on enemies or to evade enemy projectiles, feeding into a faster pace or retaining much of what made Hotline Miami great. The variety in weapons and environmental objects is also a highlight, which makes this another no-brainer pick.
Homes like monasteries. Monks. People devoted to an ideal. Devoid of compulsion. Devoid of violence. I guess I liked it because I never understood it. They say you can't really change without confronting the past. For some, it takes great effort. For me, it seems I can't avoid it. My past just came kicking in my front door.
One of the best action titles is Redeemer, where you play as an ex-special operative turned monk, given one last shot at redemption when his old company comes knocking. The highlight has to be playing as a huge, burly old man with a preference for hammers as his weapon of choice, and feels great for a number of reasons. On top of melee weapons and firearms, you can also use the environment to kill your enemies, a little bit like the old Punisher games if that makes sense. There's also a disarm or dismember system where you can use the limbs of enemies as weapons, and unsurprisingly, this developer did go on to make the fantastic beat-em up 9 Monkeys of Shaolin, so this is a good one to go back to if you have not. Also covered Ruiner in my video on Cyberpunk games, so do check that video out for more details, but needless to say, it's essentially Cyberpunk Hotline Miami. This released very close to Redeemer in 2017, but I do think that both are worth a play, depending on what you're in the mood for.
Inhuman, relentless, unstoppable. You have only one purpose: murder.
Butcher made my top 10 indie games of 2016 for good reason, since this is a bloody, action-packed 2D action platformer that essentially feels like Doom in 2D. Play as an invader from space, hell-bent on eliminating all humans, with a variety of weapons and traps at your disposal. The instant restart on death feature here is essential. For a game with the tagline, "The easiest mode is hard," but don't be put off by that, it's actually quite accessible and is one of my favourites, although some people may be put off by the low-res pixel art. This developer did go on to make Carrion as well, and another title that's totally worth going back to if you missed it.
Exterminate them all.
Of course, Katana Zero makes the list since I've often remarked at how this feels like Hotline Miami as a 2D platformer, and in many ways it is. From the stylish neo-noir setting as a parallel to the 80s vibe, to the instant death combat and beautiful violent action. On top of the awesome pixel art look, which is a huge plus, the gameplay structure where our protagonist goes to therapy and the narrative choices that you can make are very interesting, and I do love it when action platformers do a little more than simply focusing on the action, so this gets a high spot on the list. The legacy of Hotline Miami lives through to 2020 with games like Bloodroots, again with the one-hit kill, instant death and restart, where the twist here is that almost everything can be used as a weapon, from axes and clubs, wheelbarrows that you can drive into enemies, and even carrots for some reason. It has an almost Samurai Jack looking art style which is fantastic, and if you love this style of action game, do not miss out on this. Ape Out is one of the most interesting, minimalist but effective takes on the concept, where you play as an ape escaping captivity and trying to find its way home, but Ape Escape this is not. The core action will be familiar, where the beast can grab and throw humans, even to the extent of using them as human shields and firing their weapons. Add to that one of the most interesting visual styles and music, stated here as rhythmic violence and frenetic jazz, which is generated based on your actions in-game, and you get one of the slickest experiences out there, taking the #1 spot. To see more of the big picture, check out these awesome videos, and I will see you after the jump.